for the return of their king to campaign for independence. In 1931, on his deathbed, he sent for a young man he had trained to take over the mantle. Now, Africans train their successors with the agreement of the people. And you touch the man who's picked up the mantle after you. He said, send JP. That was Joseph B. Clarke. Joseph B. Clarke. Clarke carried the whole concept of freedom through the convention People's Party to the Gold Coast, United Gold Coast Convention. He invited what used to be a schoolboy under him, Kwame Nkrumah, that he still called Francis by his Christian African name, missionary name. He heard that Francis was broke in London, and he sent for him to be his secretary. And Nkrumah had spent 14 years away from home. He's impatient now. Came home and Dunquoise laid out a perfect plan for freedom in 12 years. It might have been best had he followed Dunquoise's plan instead of his own. But he pulled the young people out of the United Gold Coast Convention and formed the Convention People's Party. Toured the country. All of his lieutenants shouted, freedom, freedom, now, 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 now. He solidified the mind of the people to the point where they said, we won't wait. Or they waited 10 years instead of 12 anyway, so what's the great deal? Dunquoise's plan of organization would have made the nation so sound, it would have been hard to overthrow. Dunquoise's plan was rooted in African traditionalism. And Nkrumah's plan was rooted in Western Marxism. I'm not against Western Marxism. I'm against it in Africa when you don't make an African use of it. Whatever socialism or Marxism that exists in Africa is going to have to be designed in Africa, by Africans, for Africa. It has always been clear to me that nothing ever came from the European's mind, and that includes the Bible, that did not have as its intention the facilitation of European control over the world. There are no exceptions. You think there's a great deal of difference between the left and the right. While power is concerned, there's no difference. Right. Okay, now, as we move toward World War II, Africa once more became the focal point of the ingredients that went into the making of the atomic bomb. 7 main ingredients would come out of Africa. Without Africa, they couldn't even make the atomic bomb. Without Africa, they could not even wage the war. Look at the significance of Africa. Then look at the audacity of the President of the United States, then Reagan, the Prime Minister of Russia, meeting to discuss the future of the world without mentioning a single hour. When you don't know how to organize power, you don't know how to get to the table while power is being divided. And they will divide yours as well as theirs. They will give each other a share of yours and leave you in confusion. You should have had somebody at the meeting. Some Africans just showed up. Now look, if you don't consider us, we're going to stop the flow of gold, manganese, diamonds, all that. We're going to stop it. Not back to South Africa. We're talking about the freedom of South Africa. Freedom means more things than political freedom. Freedom if it's going to have any meaning, would mean the ability to sustain yourself after the enemy has gone. How many diamond cutters have we trained? How many harbor operators have we trained? How many students have we sent to the Colorado School of Mines? One of the great schools of mining training in this country. Instead of being in the street shouting down with apartheid, we should call some students aside and say, look, we want you to study one thing and one thing alone. The supply of water. There are three things essential to a civilization and the survival of all people everywhere for all times to come. And it's not going to change. For people to survive, they must have a good supply of land, water, and women. Without land, you can't feed yourself. Without water, the land is useless. Without women, your race stops and is no more. Until you've got a plentiful supply of all of these three commodities, you cannot build civilization. And I dare you to show me one civilization that's built with one of those commodities missing. When Europe came out of the Middle Ages, land poor, people poor, and resource poor, that was what they were talking about. And they recovered at our expense. And they still maintain themselves at our expense. If we are to go into the 21st century, we have to stop people from thriving at our expense. We must ask some essential questions, some survival questions. If you're putting nearly $3 billion a year into the economy of the United States, how many of you have made a pocket handkerchief? How many of you have made a safety pin? How many of you made a pair of shoes? You're doing all these things for other people, so you can't tell me you can't do it. Yes, sir. You're making pocket handkerchiefs for whites to sell to blacks. I'm talking about simple things that you can do right now. You can't build a nation without some kind of economic system, economic base. What are you going to supply? What are you going to sell your surplus? And if you call your enemy back to do this for you, your enemy is going to re-enslave you based on your need of him. You be careful when you build a nation. Do not call your enemy back to kill your child's stomach ache, because he will reconquer you. You're sentimental about your child. You give up a lot to keep your child alive. That's your seed. That's your next generation. That child is hurting. If you can't stop the hurt, you call in anybody. State your price. Kill my child. How many doctors have you trained? All of these things should be intact. In South Africa, we should announce South Africa is ready for nationhood. On and after a certain date, this nation will be recognized. Now, if you whites want to stay here permanently, we're going to give you a piece. The length of your body, from head to toe, 6 feet under the ground. We will begin our reign. I'm breathing now. We will begin our reign by eliminating the classification color, because we don't recognize that. You're either an African or you are a foreign. That's the way we'll be treated. Either come in the house and stay, or go out of the house and stay. No in between. No confusion. The East Indian, either your commitment is to Africa, or you can go back down. You can go back to East India. If you have no African commitment, you got no business in that nation. You're either loyal to my house, or you gonna get out of my house. Be clear about that. No sentiment. No meaning. In the 21st century, we must lose our sentimental attachment to people and stop assuming that they have the same humanity as we. In the 21st century, everything that takes up our time, our money, and our resources, and our attention, every single thing, no exception, and that specifically includes the church, must be an instrument of our liberation and the maintenance of our freedom, or it must be discarded. What I'm saying in the final analysis, that we have to reach out to each other all over the world. We must realize our number. We must realize that from the West Indies, South America, the United States, there are over 200 million people. There's 100 million in India, mostly classified as untouchable, who are now reaching out to us and saying, we are your brother. 10 billion called Dravidians, who also said that we are your brother. Millions in the Pacific. The whole continent of Australia was black until the British prisoners and thugs and whores destroyed it. We have not only reclaimed Africa in total, we must reclaim the African parts outside of Africa geographically. We have to consolidate that part. Now, do you know, had the Caribbean Union, a federation, succeeded, there would have been no invasion of Grenada, because collectively, the Caribbeans could have their own forces, an air force, trading agreement. One Caribbean nation can trade with the other nation. The Caribbean don't grow all the things they can grow. Jamaica can grow 10 times more than it grows. This whole lot of land is not being used for growth. Jamaica can partly go out of the sugarcane business and go into another business. African people throughout the world are going to have to learn a form of simplicity and growth. Africans are going to have to produce a whole lot of food that is comparatively cheap or for nothing. There could be more plantains. There could be more avocados. I'm talking about things that grow easily.